Srimoidi, the YouTube live stream has started. Can one person check and see if it's working?
Yeah.
Am I audible?
Yes, Tonish, I'm checking.
Okay, great.
Yes, it is started. Tonisha, has the speaker joined?
Speaker is not visible yet. I hope she. I'll just send her a reminder on WhatsApp. I'm sure she's trying at her end.
Okay. And we'll start at 5.
Yes. Those of you who are present with us, hello, welcome. Our speaker today is joining from a very different timeline. Time zone. So you have to bear with us a little. We'll start in the next 5-6 minutes as planned. Thank you.
Hi, can you hear me?
Shanmuga,
Hi,
it's so good to see you, finally.
good to see you too. I hope I'm on time.
Yes, you're on time. Absolutely. Great.
Great.
Shrimoidi, we'll start in another 3 minutes because we told the attendees that we are starting at 5. Yes.
Yes, another 3 minutes or so. Welcome, Shanmuga.
Thank you. Should I share the screen meantime?
Yes.
Yes, that would be
Oh,
great.
okay. Okay. Can you all see the screen?
Yes, we are good.
Wonderful.
Shanmuga, I've been so curious about your current project at UC Toronto.
I'm working on Coimbatore water bodies, like looking at the transformation from British colonial to present by using historical text and maps. So I also do like kind of field visits, kind of like collecting interviews from the elders, also public work department. So it's kind of a mixed methods.
That sounds amazing. We need a longer meeting.
Yeah,
I'll
absolutely.
do that. I'm working in the Sundarbans Sundarbans area in West Bengal, and I recently tried a mixed method way, not just academic papers. So
Okay.
had a couple of exhibitions at Gete Bangalore and places, and we are now trying to digitize it and turn it into an interactive tool that speaks both inwards and outwards and
Okay.
interactive storytelling components. So Yes, we need a longer meeting perhaps.
Yeah. I also created a digital poetry based on the research outcome. Actually, basically, I wanted to go to schools in the local to talk
Yes.
to the students, kids about the transformation. But unfortunately, due to administration issue in using WordPress, because I worked, I didn't expect that these are like starting learning, things when you do works, this kind of thing first time. So actually, I created poetry by using multiple software. Then I
Yes.
realized I cannot upload that poetry in WordPress. When I upload it in my laptop, it looks fine. But when you see that in others, it's so mess. So actually, I need to figure out that.
Yes, I was trying to click on some of the links and yes, they were not opening.
Yeah, actually, WordPress would not allow you to embed anything outside. So that's something another corporate academic related problem.
You know, I am trying to take it to the school students as well because there's this huge gap about how Sundarbans is talked about. And
Okay,
then from inside Sundarbans is practically invisible in the mainstream textbooks. So some
okay.
work both ways and can be interactive. So yes. And using stories for it, Bengali stories. So
Okay.
yes, been very interesting, very rewarding to actually work with.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, definitely we will chat about it
Yes.
later.
Okay, Srimoidi, should we start?
Yes. However
Sorry, we
interesting this
had a
conversation is, but
yes,
we have a task at hand. So,
yes, absolutely.
okay. So again, good evening to everyone who has joined us, and this is our fourth talk. In fact, in the 5-day FDP that we are having, online international FDP. And the reason it is international is because of today's speaker. And I welcome with a very warm heart Dr. Shanmugh from all the way from University of Toronto. Thank you so much for giving us your time and being with us. We are very looking forward to your talk today. And I won't be talking much, and I'll be handing you a very just same old instructions that we have. Please don't clutter the chat box. We have provided you with the Google Form link. You can ask questions throughout the lecture as you wish, but only on the Google Form, and we will be taking questions from there. Again, please be mindful of the feedback link that we share in the chat box right at the end of the session. Please fill it up as your attendance as well as our feedback, of course. And please also be aware of the mails that Tonisha very regularly sends with all the recordings and the small uh, evaluation, I would say, that is sent to you. That will also be accepted and will help us in our certification process. So, without wasting much time today, I will hand over to Tonisha, who will be chairing today's session and introducing the speaker and looking after the question answer session. So, Tonisha, whenever you're ready.
Shanmuga, may we begin? Uh, I'll just introduce, but good to go. Great. It's a pleasure to welcome everyone to the fourth session. Hi, I can't believe we are more than halfway through. Uh, Shanmuga, we are very lucky to have Shanmuga Priya here with us because she is one of the most important figures in digital humanities in India right now. And I say that with absolute honesty. And she is also one of the very crucial people who have managed to bring together humanities and digitality in very interesting ways. So, Shanmuga Priya T is a digital humanities postdoctoral scholar right now at the Department of Historical and Cultural Studies at University of Toronto. Her research and teaching interests include an interdisciplinary focus in the areas of digital humanities, digital environmental humanities, and digital literature and games. She is particularly interested in building and applying digital tools and technologies for humanities research. Shanmuga holds her PhD in Digital Humanities and in the Indian English Literature at Indian Institute of Technology, Indore, India. She was an AHRC postdoctoral research associate at Lancaster University, UK, from 2020 to 2021. Before that, Shanmuga was an SPRAC Fellow at Lancaster University in 2019. She is the Electronic Literature Organization Fellow of 2022. She has published papers in national and international avenues such as Oxford University Press, Digital Humanities Quarterly, Routledge and Electronic Book Review, and others. Shanmuga is a digital artist and works with other digital artists as well. She created a digital poetry with gaming mechanics called The Lost Water Remainscape. She collaborated with digital artist Andy Campbell for their digital poetry and digital game projects, The Lost Oasis and The Water Cave, and their upcoming digital game on the Karur water tanks. Shanmuga also created an interactive map of the transformation of water bodies from British India Coimbatore to present, so 1916 to 2021, spanning that wider domain of time. She developed a prototype web application called NEER using Python to extract specific information related to the history of water from historical texts. She has coded appropriate filters and specifically calibrated this application to deal with variations in spellings and toponyms of colonial India. She teaches courses, games and play, and reading and unreading digital born creative works, critical making of contemporary information. Shanmuga also offers digital humanities workshops and research consultation for the faculties and researchers at HCS, University of Toronto. It is such a pleasure to welcome you here, Shanmuga, and we are really looking forward to your session. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the generous introduction, Tonisha. And thank you so much, Srimai, for the invitation and warm welcome. So I think without any ado, I'm going to start right away. I'm going to share. Okay, I think we can see this.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Okay. So hello everyone. Very good evening to everyone. I'm going to talk about, give the lecture about introduction to text mining. Before I start the lecture, I would like to do some warm up kind of, exercise. I usually start this one whenever I do text mining because it's kind of a creative text mining process, and also it gives kind of welcoming kind of creativity and fun to introduce text mining to the students. I would definitely recommend this one if you're planning to teach text mining or give the introduction to text mining to your students. So let's start. This one, it's called a black poetry tool. This one actually, it's a kind of erasing poetry, which is like usually in traditional way. When you use newspaper or any sort of text materials, you just erase all the words and find some interesting words to create poetry. So it's not writing poetry, it's a creating poetry. So this one is also transformed to digital technologies. So let's see how we can, what are the other extraordinary features when it transformed it to digital. So this is how it looks like. I'm going to click the link. Can you see the web page, or I think I selected? Can you see this web page when I clicked?
No, Shanmuga, we are still with the.
Okay, I think right.
The PPT is there. Is that what you?
No, actually, I clicked the link of. Maybe I'll share. Now, I think now you can see.
Yes, it's visible.
Okay. So when you click the link, it takes to the web page of GitHub. So the poetry is about the novel Time Machine. We are going to create a poetry out of this novel. So there are few features that I have given. The first one is thesis, where only the readers are allowed to write the poetry. For example, I'm going to just select the words. For example, sound, hail, or something round, shower, smoke, I'm just randomly selecting for now. So without using my mind. So distinctly wings. Okay, it's done. So I'm going to click the done. Now the poetry is ready. So the second one, the second feature, only bot selects. So there is, no role of human here. So it's the poetry is already selected by the bot. All we have to do is click the done. So that's it. Now the second poetry is ready, but we don't have any role in creating this second poetry. It's all created by the bot. The third one, I select, but bot selects as well. Like it's a combination of human and AI. The first one is sound and it selects off. And then I select thunder, it selects far. I select pretty, pitiless, it selects round and seamed. Full, it selects in. Describe, it selects as. Okay, it's also done. Now the poetry is ready. It's a combination of human and bot. And the fourth one, I select, but bot suggests. For example, again, I select sound. It suggests a few words. So, but I can choose which one I want to select. Maybe turf, machine, and lawn. I select bushes, under. Okay, it's done. So the other poetry is also done. The last one, nothing but it creates a wave of poetry. Like it's already selected the words in the form of wave, it's also done. Okay, so now you might be curious why I'm doing this, because this is a kind of a creative work. But what's the connection between this creative work and text mining? So I'm going to, it's not a literal one, but it would be interesting one to start to create the curiosity in students. So the first one is kind of, extracting information, but it's kind of a qualitative study, because the bot or like any other, automatic, not involved in creating this poetry. The first one, only the reader selected. It's also kind of like, qualitative study. The second one, it's kind of semi-automatic, because I selected and it suggests. So, and the third one, it's also a combination of both researcher and digital technologies. Oh, sorry, I think the second one, I'm sorry, it's a kind of automatic analysis, because it only part selected all the words. And third one and fourth one, a kind of, it's a combination of human and the AI. So what I'm trying to say is that it's kind of a semi-automatic analysis. And the last one, it's a data visualization. So it's kind of fun, but it's also succinctly summarize the process of the outcome of the text mining in overall. Text mining can be just, we can use only tools and technologies to study the humanities materials, or it can be the combination of the researcher's input and AI's input to study humanities materials. And also it's a traditional way of doing like just a qualitative study. So now let's move to the entire lecture. So the first part is going to give you a kind of, overall view about the text mining. In the second part, I'm going to talk about methods and tools and a few exemplar projects. And third one is like, we are going to look at together some of the tools and techniques and technologies. So first part, introduction to text mining. First, what is text mining? So we're going to look at some kind of very simple way of defining text mining. So when you look at the term mining, it refers to extracting valuable metallic ores. It's a like dictionary form of a definition. But this term is borrowed when the ICT, information technologies, other data science were introduced to study the large amount of data, again to extract particular data among the large amount of data. So when we look at the definition of data mining, it is like kind of counting data using the statistical formations to find any significant meaning and relation. Here data can be anything. So when you treat text as data, the same kind of definition goes for text mining as well. So for example, text mining refers to counting words and phrases from a single or large scale of machine readable text using statistical formations and natural language processing to find out their significant meaning. So it's all about something to find the significant meaning or extract some information, useful information among the large amount of data, or it can be a very one single text as well. So that's kind of simple way of putting text mining. So then when we look at what we have had before text mining was introduced in humanities, so we have been doing this qualitative study, but let's look at qualitative study in the perspective of text mining. So I quoted from Natalie Houston. So she actually provides a very interesting way of defining qualitative study to compare with text mining. So look at the image as well. So when you study a text, how do you do your research? You also look for patterns, right? So you look for words or phrases or the sentences. So anyway, you're searching something. Also, it cannot be the entire novel. You need to be like, you have to narrow down yourself to find some particular words that can be associated with any meaning, right? So it's also kind of, anyway, the studies about finding something. So that's where the connection between qualitative study and text mining comes together. So let's look at this, the categorization of Natalie's. So the first one is select or collect text in order to explore a hypothesis. So it's also like, collecting text even for text mining. Look for patterns of words, ideas, symbols, rhetorical or formal structures, etc., with an individual text or within a set of text. So it can be just a single text or large amount of text, but your aim is to collect words, ideas, symbols, and discover. After once you collected, what you have to do? You have to discover the relations, also association or dependence, intention, allusion, intertextuality. It can be anything, but you have to narrow down yourself to collect some kind of words or phrases. And then the another one, interpret the significance of these patterns, relations, and text. So what is the connection between the information you find out and with the text or beyond the text? Develop arguments for the larger significance of these interpretations. So when you look at the qualitative study in the perspective of text mining, you can easily connect the purpose of text mining in humanities. So when we talk about qualitative study and text mining, the other part is quantitative study. So it's not like we just got the text mining process, but the quantitative study is something had been there in the humanities many decades before. So, but the application is very limited. For example, it's mostly used in the linguistic field to study the style of the authors or author attribution, gender identification. But after the introduction of text mining, something like with the technologies, it is expanded to study other areas of humanities. But Did Underwood reminds us that text mining is something like, distant reading, that is also a method of text mining, that is something not new. So according to Did, he actually traces back to the, traditional period where where the computer was not there, how text mine, distant reading is something used. So he gives example of Raymond Williams and Janice Redwood's experimental work. That is also kind of a quantitative study. So he gives the introduction to distant reading not from the perspective of digital humanities, but the perspective of just humanities. So and he also says that this digital humanities enhances the traditional process, again doing the same work of humanities. So then all of it sudden, why text mining becomes a thing? So there are a number of reasons why text mining becomes a thing. As you know, it's not really a new thing. Surprisingly, I'm going to reveal it, because digitization is something like it's a very much ongoing projects everywhere. So we are trying to digitizing all the leftover in our hand, digitalization of the entire world, and natural language processing. So if you imagine, like maybe not, you don't even imagine, just think about how do we interact with our friends, families, and every other day. one or other way we use digital technologies, for example, maybe mobile phone, laptop, computers, something. But you also use visuals, images, or emojis to communicate. But prominently, people use text to communicate with others by using these digital technologies. So there is already a connection built up in this environment. And then when you look at what is the use of text mining? So text mining has been used in both academic and non-academic fields. It's only a little different. When you look at the academic perspective, it's used in the research and software development. In research, it's used to study something humanities materials and also to develop software for digital humanities and other fields. When you look at the non-academic, something like the same kind of process, but different fields. For example, data science, digital marketing, healthcare, government, public policy. These days, governments also needed to do some kind of data science works. They also collect large amount of data, and they also need data scientists to parse the data. So text mining is not something like, very small thing. It's a little big thing. It's going on all over the world. But from the academic perspective, how we are using text mining? What is the theoretical understanding of text mining? How we assimilate it into our work? That's something like we need to focus on it. Okay, we are going to look at on the academic side. So there are many scholars. Scholars like Ted Underwood, Matthew Jokers, Geoffrey Rockwell, Stephen Sinclair, Anthro Paper, Joe Kildee-Mogg, and many other scholars. I didn't write all of their names. They have been exploring this field for quite a long time. They are, of course, from the global north. We don't have much experts, particularly for India. So I think these programs like these would definitely increase large number of digital humanists for Indian context. So when you look at the definitions from the academic side about the text mining more in detail, for example, it's largely applied to identify suggestive patterns and trends in the text. And text mining, according to Jokers and Underwood, text mining seeks to frame questions that contribute meaningfully to existing traditions of humanistic inquiry and ask new questions. Actually, when you use text mining, it's not like we are going to replace the traditional way of asking questions. We are going to ask new questions with the help of digital technologies. Otherwise, it cannot be asked. Or sometimes it's used to enhance the traditional questions in order to find a new way of looking at the output. So, what are the other, when you explain that mining is very useful for this field, but how do we use it? Like, for what purpose? So, I come from mostly, during my PhD, my background was literature. Now I'm moving beyond from literature to history and other social science fields. But this presentation, I actually used mostly for literature kind of text mining process. For example, to extract information related to plot and themes or character analysis. Maybe it's just, look at the gender of the characters or relationship between primary and secondary characters, events, places. This also can be for historical and social science disciplines, and periods and objects. These are just a few examples of what kind of text mining you can do with the amount of text that you have. There are many more ways of extracting information, but it's going to be very personalized research according to the research questions. So now let's look at some features of text mining. When you say text mining, there must be some features that we have to aware of it. The first one comes to mind is data. Data is something very new to humanities scholars, because in humanities in general, we don't say data of the objects of our study. We say specifically what we are going to study. For example, if you are studying text, we just say text, or paintings, images, maps. We don't call them data. So data is something, the term borrowed from other fields. And if you're interested studying more about this kind of borrow or terms come from other fields to humanities, I would definitely recommend Ursula Paulika's work. She actually extensively studied about how terms like data, lab, collaboration that came into humanities from other disciplines. That's actually very interesting, I would say, because I also used to think a lot about these terms because during my tenure at the IT indoor, we also started calling our place as lab. But it's not like we just have computers. Mostly we just don't sit all the time in the lab. We just go to library. We just go to cafes. We just sit and read somewhere. Like only when I have to do something about like writing or using some software, I would sit in the lab. So then the question, when I was reading more about lab data, then it was very interesting to ask more questions why these new terms came into play in our field. Also, if you're more interested about lab and collaborations, also I would definitely recommend Christopher Bogman, who also talks about lot about data, lab, and collaboration stuff. So, okay, when the data was introduced, it actually used as an umbrella term to cover all those objects of study in humanities. For example, text as data, paintings as data, images as data, maps as data. So it becomes very much interdisciplinary study. We can look at a few definitions of data coming from different scholars across the world. For example, Usla Baulika says, as I just mentioned, humanists use the concept of data as an umbrella term that can cover any kind of research material rather than a specific material to be investigated using quantitative tools. Christopher Bergman defines data as a reinterpretable representation of information in a formalized manner suitable for communication, interpretation, or processing. So this data can be reinterpretable, like reinterpretable and reproducible. That's the specific, if you reframe those words, it could be like that. And example of data include a sequence of bits, a table of numbers, the characters on a page, the re-recording of sounds made by a person speaking, or a moon rock specimen, which explicitly says that anything can be data. Just a single letter or a character on a page can be a data. That we actually usually ignore all those things previously. But here everything is data now. And in this digital world, if you look at the corporations of IT corporations, they also treat every other thing as data. So this is something easy to understand from the humanities and non-humanities perspective. And Christoph says that data as a digital, selectively constructed, machine actionable abstraction representing some aspects of a given objects of humanities inquiry. I think he connected to the humanitic inquiry. And Trevor says that data is created and manufactured. This one is very interesting. The last one is very interesting because when you produce some outcome from your quantitative study, that outcome is also a data because that also can be again manipulatable, reproducible, or can be studied again by using digital technologies. So overall, this is my opinion about data. So data refers to a captured, observed, or curated machine readable, writable, and manipulatable object or material that necessitates action and critical analysis. It encompasses the fusion of digital technologies and inquiries from the humanities. So in short, text as data, it should be manipulatable, multiplyable, countable, etc. So the next feature of text mining is definitely corpus. So corpus, as you know, that it's a collection of text. But what is exactly corpus? What is the role? How do we include this feature in our text mining? So when you collect the text of the contemporary period, the text can be just written in the computer and produced through computing with printing technologies, or if you just digital files, you don't find much problems. But when you use the text that was produced by print technologies, you might enquire a lot of issues. For example, the text should be converted to machine readable format. Otherwise, machine won't understand, won't read the text in the file. I'm going to just point out a few problems here. So when you have your text that is digitized, it is also kind of, if you have a PDF, excuse me, if you have a PDF, sometimes you can also, I'm sorry, just quickly, I have some water.
Please take your time. It's okay. Meanwhile, this is a reminder to everyone that, as usual, the question form is shared with everybody along with the invitation links. So if you have any questions or comments, please use that Google form. Thank you.
Sorry about it.
No worries. Just please go ahead. You're good.
Okay, great. Okay, so when you have sometimes PDF files, sometimes it looks like you can trace the words by using Control F, but that's not entirely usable when you use it for some software or some languages. Because word something like where I circled in red color, that is actually broken. So when you use this file in computers, it cannot recognize those words because it already got broken. Computers cannot recognize broken words. So if these words are primarily important in your study, you might miss these words in your text mining process. So that's where the role of optimal character recognition comes into play. This is also partially very successful when it comes to Indian context because we don't have much digitized text with optimal OCR applied. But you can find a text for Western humanities materials, Gutenberg projects, and Hathi Trust. There are many repositories that provide machine readable text with already application of optimal character recognition. So other futures when we compile a corpus. So what are the things that we have to take care of when you develop a corpus? For example, when you collect the corpus, you should aware of the period, what kind of period, which period of the humanities materials that you're collecting. It can be history or it can be literature, but you should be aware of the events that occurred that area of that era or that period of particular time. So you also have to be very careful. What are the historical? What are the authorial? Like what kind of text? Who was written? What kind of period? And what kind of settings that you are collecting? This is mostly for applicable for literature. I'm sure you can also little modify for your disciplines. But overall, it's kind of you should aware of the entire background of the corpus that you are collecting or creating. And then you should also be very careful the file formats of the corpus. Sometimes you may find text in only in PDF files or text files, HTML or HTML. You might have the combination of all these file formats, but the algorithm is not that developed to study any kind of file formats. So you should be careful when you curating text. You have to convert them into plain text or XML, HTML. I would not recommend PDF because PDF still has some issue when you use this for in your software or any programming languages. Okay, now let's look at some advantages and constraints and limitations. So there are many advantages. Of course, it's a very efficient information extraction and scalability. That is something like we couldn't do before these digital technologies were introduced. And pattern and trend knowledge discovery, multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary. It's very successful in both academic and non-academic, and it can be also used to study past data and real-time data. So there are many advantages we can list and go ahead. But what are the constraints and challenges? So this is where there are when it comes to academic, we have a lot of challenges, constraints in text mining. The first one is ambiguity. So I'm going to just show you this one. So when used, because we are going to count the words, count the words based on the frequency, based on the other like similarity patterns. But when you apply like text like this, which where we have bank, the word number of times appeared. So here bank can be something like we are sitting on the bank of the river. I bank with the HSBC, a bank of clouds. Computers would not understand, the algorithms would not understand the meaning of the bank according to the context. So if you're just going to collect the terms or words of bank for your research, and then this is the issue you would face. So you have to teach the algorithm that what kind of bank, what kind of context. So this is still very developing area. There are other algorithms are very recently introduced like Hugging Face, which also looks for the context of this sentence before extracting any kind of information. But still it's actually a very high-end advanced programming languages. You need a skill set in that. It's not accessible to everyone in the digital humanities field in India. So but we should be aware when we use algorithm for studying humanities materials, this ambiguity, everyone should be aware of this. And the next one is bias and negligence. There are many tools that are particularly developed for other contexts, but mostly developed in English or for the Western context. There must be embedded bias and negligence because they don't understand other cultural or literary historical references. And second, lack of trained data set and tools, for example, sentiment analysis. When you use sentiment analysis for social media data, like Twitter data, so Twitter data is something like, is not so much reliable when you use sentiment analysis without critically thinking about the biases, because English is something like quite common. It's a very universal language, communication language. But English also has very nuances. For example, we have Indian English, we have UK or US. These days we call English according to the country, right? So some of the words in English, of course, in English, what I mean is different here, but it could give different meaning when I use it in UK or Canada, because our understanding of the words sometimes would vary from country to country, place to place. But when you use this universal tool, Twitter, it provides the data of whatever the research you want to study. You will be using a trainer data set of the fixed that's mostly developed for Western countries. So they have different understanding about the words that are in the trainer's data set. If you are collecting data for Indian context, but you are using the trainer data set of the Western countries, then the bias, you don't know what kind of bias you are bringing in. So these are the issues are there. We should definitely look into more detail when we apply text mining. And then say the other one, the third issue is counting is not always good. So text mining is something about counting words and phrases, but not all the time you have to count the words. I'm going to give you one example. So this is a wonderful work by Sayan Bhattacharya, in which he talks about the problem in counting words. So he provides an example of Hathi Trust Library, where you have millions of data already digitized and stored. You can also do some text mining process on the data set on their website itself. But that is actually all the data on their website or already in the indexed file. So in text file is also based on the highly frequently appeared words. But when you look for words for the South Asian languages, South Asian context, maybe Indian or Malaysia or even European languages, that might not frequently appear. But they are also mostly important part of the data. But this in the in-text, that would just disappear. You cannot trace those kind of words in the frequently appeared list. So these are the issues. So counting is not always good. So and then the other is lack of temporal analysis. particularly semantic and spelling changes. This is mostly, of course, very much applicable for history and literary fields, because, for example, in history, there must be a conceptual change in some of the words throughout the history. One example I could think of when I was discussing this with Dr. Bhavani Ravan, my supervisor, who told me that the term Porambok during colonial time, it's kind of a wasteland. Before colonial time, it's kind of, general space for everyone. Then during colonial time, it's wasteland and slowly integrated into governmental system. So now it's not, Borambok is not wasteland, which is now it's a part of government. So this concept will change. You cannot trace by using text mining. Or if you can do that, definitely you need lot of, algorithms to play with. I would definitely see some kind of algorithms to work this kind of conceptual changes. um, One professor from Switzerland, I couldn't remember his name right now, he's focusing on this kind of issues, this kind of ambiguity issues in theoretical text mining, theoretical digital humanities, particularly for history, who suggests that many scholars who already have done research in this kind of conceptual changes, they can bring together to create a kind of a network to understand these conceptual changes. Then we can, it's easily to trace the changes by using text mining. And then the last issue is privacy and ethical considerations. That is something like very important when we use, like whether we are using copyrighted, non-copyrighted, ethics, how much ethics involved when we scrap the data online. So these are the constraint challenges of the text mining. So now we are moving to methods and tools. There are well-known methods, for example, distant reading, macroanalysis, reading machines. I'm going to quickly go through all those methods, the definition of the methods. The first one is distant reading. Of course, it's very well-known method. I'm sure you might come across this one whenever you hear about digital humanities or quantitative study or text mining. So Franco Moretti introduced this method to study the great unread mass in order to see the macro evolutionary patterns in literary history. And he defines distant reading as where distance is a condition of knowledge that allows us to focus on units that are much smaller or much larger than the text, devices, themes, tropes, or genres on systems. And the macro analysis, the next one is by Matthew Joker's macro analysis. So macro analysis, the systematic examination of data on the quantified methodology, and the important difference is that it unfolds the details about the text otherwise unavailable to close readers of the text. The final one is the algorithm criticism, is more about the deformation of the text analysis or deconstruction of the text analysis by using computational algorithm. So all those methods, simply they are all they're conveying about how we can study humanities materials by using quantitative study, by using different methods, tools, and technologies to study humanities. But these methods also had been criticized for their number of constraints. For example, lack of transparency, lack of features that have been used in their methods. So during my PhD research, I observed all those gaps in those methods, and then I came up with this method for my dissertation. This one is quantitative stepwise analysis. This method is specially inspired by the existing methods of Moratti, Joker's board, Catherine board, and Owen 8. So particularly, I used Owen 8's method a lot in my research. So this method is used to study literary works in very systematic way. So it can be applied to study either just a scale of any kind of extension. For example, it can be just a paragraph or sentences or even words, and study that can be applied to events-based features, place names and their influence, objects oriented. So Oyvind 8 introduced some structure, methodological structure for his method. That's something very useful for everyone because he introduced 4 categories, 4 stages. The first one is source text, where he explained the corpus. What are the corpus details that we have to take care of? So the first one is in the first stage we aggregate the files based on some norms and justification that I just discussed a few minutes ago. And the second one, primary model, where we isolate the desired data from the text and pre-processing. So I'm going to discuss what is pre-processing in a few minutes. So the third one is secondary model, where we study data by using some software or any Python or R software. And then the last one is target media product, where we create visualizations for our analysis, because that's where the interpretations come into play. So because interpretation is something very important out of all the process in the text mining, that defines the quality of our text mining process. So what are the milestones in general in text mining? So first one is information retrieval, and the second one is information extraction. The third one is mining. The last stage is final. When we say all these 4 stages, it's kind of a humanities stages. What is the other interdisciplinary stages? In the first one, we build the corpus. In the second stage, we as the same 4 stages categories here. We collect the desired data from the corpus, and the final third one is we apply one or more than one or two tools, and then last stage visualization and interpretation. So now we are going to look at the types of text mining. So topic modeling, frequent word analysis, cluster analysis, sentiment analysis, concordance or keywords in the context analysis, named entity recognition, text classification, word embedding. So these are the very famous text mining types, methods. So we are going to look at only very few with the help of some of the projects. So the next is pre-processing. In pre-processing, the format of the files is very important, as I mentioned, and the next stage is cleaning the text. So that's where the pre-processing mostly involves. So when you clean the text, you might need to stop some words not to come into the play. For example, words like this, when was the first computer invented, and question mark. You might just want to look at the first computer invented. So when was these kind of words, they are repeatedly appeared in our text, might not be very useful for our study. So we have to stop all those words. So but sometimes if you are looking for the pattern in the sentence, then you no need to apply the stop words. So stop words, and then the final is lexicon normalization, which is also it's based on your research and research questions and objectives. Lexicon normalization is nothing but it's a finding a common root word. For example, in stemming, we remove the derivational affix. For example, likes, liked, liking. So when you extract these, you want to extract words like. So, but it also all these words would appear in your outcome, but might not be useful, and it also will be slowed down your speed of the research, speed of the application. So you have to look for the root word of those words like, and then lemmatization. Find base or dictionary form of word. For example, am, is, or. So it's not very useful to gather all those words. All you want the base word like be. But there are many challenges in lexicon normalization as well. For example, when you just use stemming, it will just remove the, for example, flying to fly. That's not meaningful. And then women to finding the root dictionary form of word. So it converts women to woman. So that is also not helpful. You want to look at women, not women. So we have to decide to certain extent how this lexicon normalization is useful for our study. Okay, when we say pre-processing, we also have to aware of some of the important issues. Actually, this visualization I'm currently working on for a paper which is under review, but it's very useful. That's why I included in this talk as well. The possible challenges in pre-processing running headings, because sometimes, for example, history or literary works, you might have running headings throughout the novels. So that also would affect the frequency of the counting terms, and many sections inside subheadings. Sometimes subheadings also would run throughout the pages, and so we have to find a way to stop all these running headings, subheadings. Otherwise, that would affect the result. And setting the parameter for shortcomings, and sometimes we have footnotes and other references. So sometimes we need that for our research, sometimes we don't need that for our research. So, but sometimes footnotes may be middle of the pages. How do we find them? How do we stop them not running into our analysis? So these are the things we have to take care of when we do pre-processing. So we are going to look at a few text mining methods now. For example, topic modeling. Topic modeling, according to Matthew Jerkers, he calls it as a mother of all collocation tools. It's widely used method in digital humanities, in all sorts of disciplines. Actually, it treats the documents as a bag of words and searches the co-occurrence words from top to bottom. Topic modeling was introduced by David Lee, who defines this as a topic is a probability distribution over terms. In each topic, different sets of terms have high probability, and we typically visualize the topics by listing those sets. Topic models find the sets of terms that tend to occur together in the text. So it's not about the frequency. It's about the frequency of appearing together. It's not even the collocation also. So sometimes a word can be appeared together with one word, or not with, not continuously. So, and also it looks for the patterns. It will divide the patterns according to the terms occurred together. I can show you examples. They look like topics because terms that frequently occur together tend to be about the same project. So there are a number of tools like LDA, Mallet, and BERT. I'm going to also show you one of the important online tools where you don't require any programming language for using topic modeling. So this example of project for topic modeling is very much interesting. Let's look at this one. This one is called 40 Signs. It's a thing. It's a journal where they collected 4 decades of their articles published, and they use topic modeling to find out what kind of topics appeared all those periods of 4 decades. So let's look at. So this is how they actually they come up with the title of the topic that algorithm would not produce. As a researcher, we have to define the terms by giving some title. For example, this one is Africa, because African, as you can see, Africa is highly frequently appeared to other terms. That's why they named it as Africa. So Asian, American, biology of sex, birth. Why they decided biology of sex? Let's look at the terms. Development, biological, males, female, sex, male, female, sexual. So that's why they defined it as a biology of sex. You can also explore this one. It's called 40 Signs. Let's look at some interesting. So how the topics appeared over the period. So this is where I find it quite interesting. Okay. So in this visualization, you can see some of the topics, how they, appeared, whether like frequently in the beginning, but towards the end, the frequency got reduced, or like, they started very less and but focused more towards the end. For example, this social topic, it's also prominent when compared to others, but it becomes very focused one towards 2010. And then let's look at this yellow one. It's a politics of difference. It just started appearing from 19 very like 1980s onwards, maybe mid of the from between 1980 to 1985. But it received huge attention towards 2010. Um, and then speech also similarly, and lesbian gay cure. Let's look at this one. I think this yellow. I think this color. Health, sports. Okay, I want to look at lesbian gay cure. Okay, which color? Okay, I think it's red color. So look at the frequency level. It's quite interesting. Um, from 1990 it started, but it was quite good in mid of the 19 between 1990 and 95, and it fell down in 1995, and then it was okay, and then it was very thin line, and altogether disappeared here from between 2000 2005, and then it's kind of ups and down. That's very interesting, right? So this is very useful when you have a huge amount of data. If you want to find a pattern and theme like this, and then topic modeling is the best tool. So I'm going to stop here. You can explore. This is very interesting project. The next one is let them speak. Let them speak from Yale University. Let's look at this one. This is in search of the drowned consists of several technologies. This is about the Holocaust event. They actually collected testimonials and also other documentations about the Holocaust. They used various methods of computational to study this Holocaust event. I'm going to show you one particular method from this. Let's look at the fragments. Okay, this is very interesting one because they collected the verbs of the testimonials, and to look at the tree of those terms. For example, fear. So fear is connected to number of phrases. That phrases would tell the story of the testimonials. For example, fear for father, fear for not fearing death, fear for mother, children without fear, fear for parents, life with a fear. It's very interesting way of creating a visualization about the this research. So there are many terms which also has the collocation of the phrases. They use topic modeling first. It's kind of very mixed one. You can go to their methodology section, read about it. They use number of methods together. They first used topic modeling and then collected only verbs, and then they also looked for the connection of the words with other close phrases, and then they created this tree of map. Okay, the other topic modeling example I would say is from my own research. I use topic modeling to study Indian English novels to look at the impact of technological devices. So my research, the key outcome of my research is the gender disparity, because I couldn't even find one single female characters for computer. Also, when we look at the television, it's also mostly female, and it also tells about the history of television when it was introduced, how they targeted men and women differently. So when it comes to women, it's mostly they should mostly the programs focused on women, kind of they to modernize them without westernization kind of ideology they brought back to India when they use television, and programs like cooking shows, other serials. There are many serials about family in India, so they are mainly targeting women. So when I look for patterns of television, it's mostly female characters, and the words are associated with domestic sphere. At the same time, when you look at the male characters, the words are associated about the social space. For example, like business, sports, politics. Those terms appear for male characters. So this is one of the interesting outcome from my research by using topic modeling in Indian English novels that published from 1950 to 2017. The other research, again, it's a collaboration between myself and my friend and colleague Vatitullah. So it's for her research. I helped for the topic modeling part. She wanted to look at the oral aesthetics in Northeast Indian English novels written by women. But the scholarly argumentation is mostly about the violence going on in Northeast that is reflected in the novels. That's the scholarly focus. But she wanted to prove that these novels also have oral aesthetics. So that's where we actually collected 16 to 17 novels, and then we used topic modeling to find out the oral aesthetics. It's obvious politics and violence also recurrently appeared in the novel, but that's not the only voice of the novels. The novels also represent the indigenous oral aesthetics, contemporary social life, and landscapes, and their other cultural stuffs. So the next method is collocation analysis and keywords in the context. Collocation is something, it's also a very well-known method. It refers to words or phrases that tend to appear together more or word combination that exhibit a higher degree of co-occurrence or association. So Matthew Jerker says that keywords in the context searches are a standard way of addressing Robert Fitts' observation that you will know a word. I think this kind of mathematical observation that you know a word's meaning or sense by looking at other words around it, that is by its context. So it's collecting the words that frequently appear together. It's not like topic modeling. Where topic modeling look for the pattern, here keywords or context is something the words continuously appeared together. So for this method, I can provide one example. This research by Melvin and Jesper, who actually studied newspaper advertisements about the Coca-Cola from the I think from past, I think few decades before. I'm missing out the year, 20th century, right? Yeah, 20th century newspapers. So they used, it's kind of mixed method. They used both qualitative and quantitative study. And so maybe we can just go and look at the question. They want to ask this question: did Coca-Cola advertisements in Dutch newspapers communicate themes that represented American way of life? How the advertisements of Coca-Cola that whether that brought the American way of life into Netherlands or not. That's their question they want to ask by using computational methods. But their research identifies that this is how they actually the method they provide workflow of their method. So it's a cluster analysis, concordance, word frequency list, and collocation. It's a very interesting paper. If you are interested in reading about collocation, I would definitely recommend this one. So their final result is about Coca-Cola, whether it's brought American life into Netherlands or not. It's actually not. It didn't bring any American way of life through the advertisement, but represented Coca-Cola as a global brand. So that's their research. The next method is word embedding. Word embedding is a relational model that represents the relationship between words in a way that allows computers to understand and work with words more easily. So one example I could quickly think of the relationship between words. For example, if you say man, what is the relationship between other word could be? It could be woman, right? Or king or queen. Like this kind of, closely related words. That if you're looking for those words, then word embedding method is absolutely suitable. For this, I can think of one fun project. It's a Pride and Prejudice, in which the researcher Lynn used, she replaced the words of Pride and Prejudice. Particularly, I think, if I'm not wrong, nouns, I guess. I forgot the term. I think it's noun. So replaced nouns of the close related words of nouns from other novels of the writer of Pride and Prejudice, right? So I just got blank about the writer's name. So that's very fun project. If you go and look at in their website, you can find about more about word embedding. So the other one, word embedding again, comparing Pride and Prejudice and shades of 50 Shades of Grey. So in this project, they compared genders, like how characters are presented. So when it comes to Pride and Prejudice, the characters are mostly female that represented throughout the novel. But when it comes to 50 Shades of Grey, the focus is more on the protagonist of the male. So that's where, like, word embedding was very helpful in this research. Okay, I think I covered a few methods in today's talk, but you can go and explore other methods if you're really interested. The last one is open access tools and techniques and technologies. So we can look all these things together. For example, the first one is repository tutorial techniques. Let's see. Okay, Trapper actually provides tools which are mostly sometimes open access, not open access, not programming like language skill required, but you can definitely analyze, go through this and find a suitable tool for your research. In this case, this repository of tools is very important one. And then next is programming historian, which actually provides tutorials for some of the tools and technologies. For example, like even the data manipulation, distant reading. There are many libraries in text mining or like mapping in Python, network analysis. Even like you can find for software related tutorials. It's very much useful for digital humanities scholars. And then the data sitters club, which is also about the experience during your research. You can read this and find some comforts if you have many doubts and questions, how these scholars also had in their during their research. And ChatGPT. With ChatGPT is very much helpful when it comes to learning. You can also learn by using ChatGPT. If you are writing a code, if you want to find whether the code is like right or like it has some bugs or issues, you can use ChatGPT to identify the issues in your code. And you can use ChatGPT in a way very useful for your learning. And when it comes to tools, the first one, Sketch, it's actually for building your corpus. It's not really open access, but I find it's very interesting one. But I'm looking for this kind of tool for corpus building, which could be an open access tool. But so far, I couldn't find anything according to my own knowledge. In this one, you can build a corpus of different file formats, and also you can use it for research. Sorry. And Voyant is well-known text mining tool. I think it would not need much introduction for Voyant tools. It has a number of text mining tools built inside. You can also upload, just copy paste your text, or you can upload number of files and you can explore the different tools built inside. But it has some limitations. The visualizations are not really very good, and it's very difficult if you want to use large number of files. Also, if you want to perform a number of methods, for example, you want to first look at concordance and then you want to also look at the topic modeling of the concordance output. So you can't do it in Voyant, but it's very much useful to introduce to the students about text mining. So it's a very starting way of exploring, corpus linguistics related methods. And then Ankong, it's very absolutely simple, wonderful tool. I would say I use this tool a lot in my workshop to teach about text mining, like concordance, keywords in the context. This tool is like they are evolving every other day, so you can find many new features in the recent tool. So it's very simple. You can just download and install. It won't require much install strategies. So it's very simple to install, and you can also use it very easily. It would not require much learning. They also have proper documentation. You can find it on their website. You can just go through the documentation. It would take only a few minutes, and then you can easily learn this software within, I would say, maybe 10 to 15 minutes or half an hour. You'll be an expert by using Hancock. That easily adaptable software for digital humanities scholars who do not want to learn programming languages. And this one, which I was talking about in the beginning of our lecture, this one is topic modeling, which usually not available, which was not available in the earlier period of maybe like during 2015 when I started my research. When I wanted to perform quantitative study, particularly using text mining, I struggled a lot because I had to learn programming languages. I tried using YN, didn't work out, and then I thought I could buy the code and then use the code for my research. That also didn't work out, and then I had to learn the our software to perform this topic modeling. So it took away nearly 1 year of my research period for this topic modeling, but now it's very simply available online. You can just upload your text and select the run the model. You could easily see the terms that occurred together properly done, but it has some limitations. You cannot use large number of text. You cannot, as I said, you cannot perform any other methods. Only for topic modeling you can definitely use this. If you have very less number of data, or if you want to teach topic modeling, you can definitely use this for your students. And then WordSeed, also another text mining. So you can install this one. This is also a very simple one, but when I was checking this much earlier, it was working, but I don't know whether it's working now. So I'm sorry I included this one in the slide. This one is very recent one from the data basic. This also kind of it has 4 number of methods. So like word counter, and then looking at the similarity of and then connect the dots. It's also corpus linguistic tool. So this one also you can explore and you can use it for your students. And then Recogito and TechTalk, both are annotation tools. Recogito is very accessible. It's open access tool. And then, but TechTalk is to certain extent you can also use it. But if you want to use number of features, for example, it also has AI inbuilt natural language processing. If you want to use that also in your research, then you have to purchase it. But otherwise, my friends and colleagues, they have been using this tech talk without purchasing it. They just use it for certain features only for annotating their data set. But Recogito has more features than the tech talk. You can also use to find the place names, and also it actually map those place names as well. And named identity recognition also inbuilt within Recogito. So it's very useful tool. That's it. I'm looking forward to discuss any of your doubts and questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Chanuka. That was a wonderful beginning. I think for a number of people in the audience who are, like me, a little scared of the.
I understand.
Yes.
Mhm.
is especially amazing because this is coming from somebody who has started from a very humanities background like you. And in a lot of ways, you're still working on humanities projects. So close
Yes,
to
exactly.
analysis is, I think, not just a literary studies thing. I'm sure there are sociologists and historians and economists who would agree that they are doing it in different ways. Uh, Shimoidi, would you like to take over while I go and check the questions?
Yeah, that was really very enlightening. For people like us who are absolutely new to this and having no idea at all, this was very illuminating. Thank you so much for the clarity that you showed in the way that you presented your talk. It made us, or rather, it introduced us to a world which is, should be told, very unknown to us. But that's the very purpose of this MDP. You see, I mean, when we pitched the idea to IIT that we want to do this, that is something that we wanted to have. That, you know, just getting introduced to something that sounds very exciting and new, but very frightening. So we wanted to have speakers who would make it simple for us and make it appealing, and also make it something that tells us that yes, somehow we can manage this for us. And I think so far, all the speakers that we've had, I think both my coordinators will agree, and I hope our participants will also agree that we have been able to address that. So, Tonisha, are you ready with questions?
Yes, yes. Shanmuga, there's a lot of appreciation for the session. Uh, a number of people find it very interesting and excellent and very useful. So, there is one question by Kanak on Dr. Kanak Yadav, who says, in such a quantifiable analysis, where do you situate the repetition of words, their occurrence in narrative, and what becomes of aesthetics?
Okay, that's very interesting, very humanistic question. Um, I'll take a moment to answer. Could you repeat the question again?
Sure, sure. In such a quantifiable analysis, where do you situate the repetition of words, their occurrence in narrative, and what becomes of aesthetics?
Okay, so uh, I just this is coming to my mind currently. So before this text mining was introduced to me, um, I learned about a research from a MPhil scholar from Baghdad University when I was doing my masters, who was looking for this particular word "naked" from the different context in one particular novel. The writer was using this "naked" word in different contexts, only in the single novel. So this researcher looked for the association and pattern in different context. Also, how the narrative takes place by using this word. I think the aesthetic would not disappear if the researcher would done the same way research by using text mining method. Would have saved much time, would have saved the energy, because I knew that the researcher would sit and read the text closely and find the words where find the particular word naked in different context. So that's the only thing now comes to my mind when you ask this question: aesthetics when you do quantify. Also, when I think in the couple of slides in the beginning I told that Ted Underwood, how he introduced us to go back and look at the distant reading without before the computer was introduced. So I think that is also kind of aesthetic way of looking at the quantified research in humanities materials. I would say I think it would not change anything, but it would mostly enhance and give some kind of surprise, sometimes surprising us. So that happened in my research as well. When I started my research, I didn't expect that I would end up seeing the result of gender disparity in the narrative. When it comes to the application of digital technologies, how they're differently used for genders. So I think it provides more aesthetics, I would say.
Thank you, Shanmuga. I think I in my head, at least you have answered the question. If Kanak has a follow-up question, I'm sure she'll use the form. We have another question from Aruti Banerjee. She asks, would you say text mining is better suited to quantitative analysis rather than qualitative analysis of texts?
I think mining is something like if you use mining, if you remove the computational approaches, it's applicable for in both contexts. That's how Natalie Austin, brilliantly summarized all those features of qualitative study, which you can find the same pattern in text mining when you use computational with the computational application as well, right? Because you look for patterns, words, the same. It's only the difference is you would sit and read entire novel to look for the pattern, but when you use digital applications, you just look for only the patterns. You don't know what's going on around. You don't. It just this. There is a wall between you and other words that you don't want to see. So I think text mining, if you remove the computation application, it's very much applicable for both qualitative and quantitative study.
Thank you. It's very interesting to see how the questions have tended towards this worry or a question about it basically being about pattern recognition and corpus studies. And the limitations that you already cited in your work, that you already pointed out, if the readers remember the example with the bank, for instance, they do look at it. Still, we have another question by Dr. Abdul Hadi, who asks, it was a very interesting session, he says, and then he adds, I would like to know the limitations of text mining. So,
okay, yeah, I think I listed already a few limitations. The ambiguity, as just you mentioned, the bank word bank, how it can be used in different contexts, but algorithm would not know what kind of meaning associated with the bank because we just count the word of bank, how many times it appeared, and also not bank also. For example, I want to look at the sentence where the bank is embedded, but I want just count. Also, I want to know the meaning. For example, if the word sentence has not bank, add just bank. But not is already, if I use stop word, not would disappear. And then it just collects only bank and the meaning would disappear as well. So I think there are a number of limitations that we have to definitely make sure we are aware before applying any methods of text mining in our research.
I suppose one immediate question that would follow is, in a study of this kind, with all the limitations in mind, the ambiguities and the peculiarities set aside, what would be a good starting point for a number of our participants? A good software, a small exercise that isn't too overwhelming, perhaps, where they would, because I think beyond a point, we all learn by playing the softwares a little, right? There's a lot of trial and error going around, and sometimes it looks very scary. So, Shanmuga, what would you suggest as a good starting point?
Yeah, I definitely would suggest start with just frequent word analysis. That's how I started actually. I just started with collecting frequently appeared words by using Viant tool, because Viant tool is wonderful and very colorful. So it would also encourage you to see the colorful visualization. So you can start with word count and also sentiment analysis, something like it has a lot of issues, but you can simply use sentiment analysis online and to see what kind of trend data set, what kind of your data can be correlated with the trainer data set, whether you are satisfied or not. You can ask many questions when you use sentiment analysis, and then you can go for topic modeling that I just showed you online tool. I can also share the PPT with you and Dr. Srimai. You can find the link and just explore topic modeling. So you can start with word count and sentiment analysis, topic modeling before going for learning very advanced methods and languages.
Thank you. A lot of compliments, Shanmuga. Ferdinand Fernando thanks uh, for the presentation and finds it very informative. I'm sure if you've looked at the chats that are in WebEx itself, a lot of thanks and appreciation coming in there as well. I think I saw a couple comments. We haven't had more questions right now. I think everyone needs around 3-4 minutes to process it a little. So we will just give them that time. We are expecting more questions. We have time. So, and everyone has the Google form, right? So if you have any question, any concern, as you know, there is no bad question. The only bad question is the one that you didn't ask. So please feel free to ask. We have something from Radhika Ramesh.
Okay.
She asks, please share some information on image analysis. For example, memes. Is there any work you can mention for us to reference?
I'm not really an expert. I'm not even expert in image analysis. That area I didn't even touch. So um, I can maybe look for. So I don't know much about it. Honestly, all this year I mostly focused on text. So image is something still far away from me. I'm so sorry.
Oh, please. Okay. We are waiting for more questions.
Shanmuga, you can go to the chat box. There is a lot of praise for you in that chat box. It might
Okay.
be.
I could see only a few, one or two, maybe only from 619 onwards.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Thank you so much to everyone.
We will wait for a few more minutes for more questions. See, typically
Sure.
we start with a lot more questions than these. So I would encourage people to not get intimidated. That's the
Yeah, please feel free to ask any questions. If you think that is silly, please don't worry, because when I started, I was also like you. In the year of 2015, I was even more than very silly about. I used to get very very silly doubts and questions, but I don't know to whom ask. So I'm there here for you. Please feel free to ask any kind of questions. Don't worry about the question. Like, don't worry about the quality of the question. Please ask me anything.
as you can see, we have a wonderful and deeply approachable speaker. And what is very interesting is, Shanmuga, both while this was an amazing presentation on text mining, from the way in which I introduced you or the tiny conversation we had in the very beginning, your own work is a perfect example for humanities scholars doing digital humanities, where yes, a lot of digital tools are being used, but some of the core or primary concerns are essentially what we would call humanities and social science concerns or literary analysis concerns. And that is something that you have not shifted away from at all. So how do you think your own work has changed over time, or from the beginner that you were in 2015, what is
Yeah, and actually, I was just thinking about it. Thank you so much for asking this one. I actually wanted to say something about the failures that I had in the past. So failures shaped what I'm today. Like it didn't take away anything. It challenged me. I accepted the challenge and moved on. The failures I'm going to list up, I think I just listed a couple of failures just some times ago, because when I started in 2015, actually that time in our department we had computer scientist, but in the humanities department to teach some tools for us. We were so lucky, but I didn't realize how much I was lucky, because I just joined. I didn't know that learning R software is going to be helpful in my research. And it was so intimidating in the beginning because number of, that algorithm pattern, that was, I couldn't, learn. I couldn't involve myself in learning that. So I skipped it. And then the workshop was only for a few weeks, I guess 1 or 2 weeks, yeah, one day in a week. So then after a year, I realized what I missed because I now I want to do text mining in my research. So I missed the opportunity of learning our software. By the time the computer scientist left the department, we don't have anyone now. But luckily, Dr. Nimla brought that computer scientist in our department when I joined. But I didn't realize I should have used that opportunity. And then when I started with just Viant and Explode, and then started questioning myself whether I'm doing the right research or not, where I'm going, whether I can complete this research or not. So much questions. I tried my best to do something about the text mining. And then I contacted one programmer. I paid 5,000 rupees to buy a code. And then I bought the code, but there was a discipline communication problems because I couldn't explain what I wanted. And the programmer also couldn't understand what I wanted, what I mean it. So the programmer gave me a set of codes. When I used that code, output looks so messy. But I don't know how to edit the code as well. Now I cannot pay again the person again 5,000 rupees to reorganize the code. So that was like kind of very disappointment. And then I thought, okay, let me learn this language myself. But I need someone to teach me. But I don't have any computational computer science background. I need someone who has the ability to teach non-computer science background person, like humanities person. Because if they use all those terms of computer science, I would not definitely understand. Then I actually called many institutions that they teach languages, data science in indoor. I'm ready to pay any sort of amount for that. Again, I was not satisfied. I'm not really comfortable because they were using so much technical terms that just going around on my head. It's not, it's I couldn't learn it. Then I found someone in Chennai in my mother language when I because I could easily ask them, any sort of questions, meaning of the term. Please tell it in Tamil. Don't tell anything in English. So I tortured the person, and the person goes to work in the daytime and comes in the evening. Every day after 7 o'clock, I sit in the, I would be in indoor, and the person was in Chennai. And then we used to Zoom, and then I learned every other day. It took, I think, few months to learn our program. That was it started as a failure in the beginning. And then slowly I developed to, achieve something little bit. Again, the interpretation of the outcome is another challenging because you can perform anything. Just put it in the software, put it in the language, programming like many libraries, but you have to find a way to interpret the result. That took another few weeks of understanding because that's where I read all the background information. That's where I realized how that is very important. When even though whatever research you actually, if you're doing qualitative research, you would have done it naturally. But all those months I wasted learning. I mean, I not wasted. I invested in learning software. I forgot about the background research that I have to perform. Then I sat and read all those background informations, historical or events, everything about literature of the period of literature that published from in after independence. And then it took few weeks to interpret the result. So again, one other failure in my postdoc research where I developed this web tool for historical analysis, historical materials. Then that also kind of one failure, but that failure helped me to find another advanced algorithms currently I'm working on. So don't afraid of failures. Failures are part of our research. And so that's why I encouraged, ask anything. You might not know how important that is now, but it might be very useful in your research. Sorry, it took so much time.
No, it's great because I think we needed a session like this very badly. I mean, I know I personally really feel very comforted after a session like this because there are things that look very alienating, honestly.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
also, it's thank you for being so upfront and, describing it. And they don't feel like failures because I'm sure all of us in humanities research, we start with a hypothesis and then the actual text completely turns it around or sometimes just subverts or contradicts it. Or people who do ethnographic work under me come back with conclusions that are very different than it started. So it almost feels like another parallel system that is pretty much doing the same thing.
Maybe this failure, that failure, we have been trained to face that failure. You know how to
Yes.
handle. Maybe this is so new to us. This failure sometimes disappointing. That's why I think these days failures, people are digital humanists, the first generation digital humanities, they are talking about the failures because the upcoming generations, they should not afraid of being failed.
Yes.
So yeah, that's
Yes.
very.
I agree. I can see a few questions coming in. Before I go there, I had one small question because we are talking about a very particular trajectory now. The new buzzword seems to be minimal computing. People are using it a
Right.
lot. So, how do you define it, or how would you look at what do you make of this term?
Um, that's very useful, like for our current context. I would not say maybe future. For currently, it's very useful that concept. Actually, now I'm working on a paper with another friend who actually struggled like me in the beginning by the same kind of process she also went through. And then she found this tag talk. I actually found this tag talk in when I was working in Lancaster with Patricia. Once Patricia introduced this tag talk to me, and then I find it very interesting because my friend, she was struggling with annotating social media data by using topic modeling. The result was super messy. And then I suggested, why are you struggling so much with learning Python and applying some algorithms that you don't know, and then output, you don't know how to describe it? Why don't you go for Tactalk? Now, then she done her work by using Tactalk. It's very easy. Now we are thinking back, this is minimal computing, right? Because we were thinking of something big. We were thinking of something, oh, you have to learn the advanced programming techniques to do research. Not That's not necessary for all the time. If you don't have time, if you don't have energy, if you're, you have to perform it immediately, then go for minimal computing. I would say that's very much important and suitable, and in many cases it's really helping. But we don't know we are doing minimal computing. That's the maybe this is, we didn't name it, but scholars name it, rubicarism, I think Alex Gill, they name it, then we are realizing, oh yes, we are also doing minimal computing at some point.
Yes. The second question I'll ask before I go, I can see that the form is getting steadily filled. And thankfully, we have some time. We have around 20 more minutes in this session. Uh, Very quickly, we talked a lot about textual analysis. Sometimes we want the output of the research to not be another academic paper. While the academic papers are amazing and we are talking to our academic community, we want it to be a little more public facing or a little more accessible. And we know that one of the most obvious things about the internet is it promotes access. It can be used in different ways. So, do you have any suggestions for that? So, whether they are learning games, tools, because gaming is also another part of your work. So, any interactive platform, anything that can be used for people who are not very highly trained in computational coding, who can, tools that can be used to make something a little more accessible or a little more interactive in a pedagogical way or in a research sharing way. Do you have any suggestions?
um okay, so it's really important question. I think how to think before I answer, because I know, I think this is, I think this question I need to ask myself as well, because I'm I started teaching now. I used Twine. Twine is something very interactive, very simple text-oriented interactive platform that I used to teach creative works, and then the students also produced many creative works, not just only Twine, because the students I taught, they come from different background, so they used Figma, HTML, but I taught them Twine, and some students used Twine, not other students. And I think very much interactive. You mean like the output you want to display, or you want to interact with the students by using this tool, you mean?
A bit of both, that showing a particular kind of output in a more accessible way or in a quick way. Perhaps that's one part of it. The
Okay.
second is if you want to show the output and get students' responses or see how they are interacting with it, if you want to have that element as well, a sort of feedback loop.
Okay. Oh, I couldn't think of any platform right now, but there is one thing like generative poetry, something. I just saw earlier the Flo's assignment, one of his assignments, he used that assignment where he used ChatGPT with the help of students can use ChatGPT to write the code and correct the code and generate poetry by using that code.
Yes.
But there the instructor would not cannot see the direct cannot interact online, the students instructor cannot interact online, but that's kind of a creative activity to learn the code without any anxiety about learning the code. Maybe if I come across, or if I get more ideas about this one, but this, thank you so much, I have to note this down right away.
I'm glad, because that's one part that I'm also trying to figure out a little, and I'm sure others. We keep talking about flipped classrooms or, more interactive ways of pedagogical practices. And what does that mean, especially in situations where you're otherwise resource starved a little? So if you're working in a slightly remote location, or if you're working in a slightly low income neighborhoods government school, how do you incorporate, how do you make these things work or make it work
Yeah.
in favor? So there is a question in the WebEx chat. I'll go to the, I can see a lot of questions have come in the form.
Okay.
S. Vijayarani has asked, text mining, with text mining, we are recreating a text, seems to reaffirm that the author is dead and the reader is a co-creator and AI is the creator. And smiley face. So,
Okay.
uh, would you like to respond to that before we go to the other questions?
I think that's very interesting comment, I would say. I also have an electronic literature background, as you know, I guess. In that case, I think death of the author it's already started redefining that concept, because now author lives online, or the reader also participates in the production of the text. So it's a kind
Yes.
of, there are number of ways redefine the concept of death of the author. And I don't know what's going to happen in the future. It's very interesting to see this traditional criticism, how this, reflecting and changing because of the media conditions.
Yes. Yes. In the Google Forms, Rakhi Lalwani has asked, in a specifically arts and humanities setup, could you please suggest ways in which we can begin to integrate these tools in class, especially when teachers are beginners?
Okay, I think Viant is the best tool first you start with, even for the faculties or students to understand how text mining functions. Not only Viant, all the other tools I listed, and Conk, and topic modeling, and then what else? Same, different, like it looks forward, count, and similarity. These are the tools that definitely you can start with. You can play around first yourself and ask more questions from the humanities perspective and humanities inquiry to understand the outcome or even the futures of the tools, because sometimes the futures would not make really suitable for your question or suitable for any humanities objectives. So maybe you can explore why and other tools, and then you can later, once you started understanding the importance and the challenges, constraints of the tools, then you can definitely introduce them to the students.
Thank you. The next question is from, I hope that answers your question, Rakhi. The next question is from Madhurima Mukhopadhyay. She asks, could you suggest a reading list for people like us who are uninitiated to this entire process of text mining to begin with and learn this process? Also, is there any way in which I could use these tools for teaching and research?
Absolutely, you can use these tools. I think the last question also, it's mostly about integrating them. Maybe if you're teaching literature, you can take just one novel, which is familiar to you and the students, and then you can ask the students, explore the novel uh, by using those tools. Maybe before reading them, maybe take a new novel they didn't read before, and use the YN tool to read the novel by using methods like topic modeling or counting the words, and try to interpret that. Also, then you can ask the students later to read the novel like qualitative study. They can do the qualitative study and compare the interpretation, and that's where you can start critically understand the difference between text mining and qualitative study. So that's one way of integrating. If you're teaching history also, I think somewhere you can use annotation, something you can definitely use. That one I would recommend. What is the other question? I'm sorry, I missed it.
There is a request for a reading list for
Reading list. I think there are a number of websites, digital humanities websites. You can find the reading list of text mining. Yeah, maybe I look for, I think in the Earth we don't have, but I think ADHO website, maybe you can explore there, or otherwise, there are a number of digital humanities centers. They have listed number of tools and reading list for different fields in digital humanities in general, not only text mining, but other fields in digital humanities. So look for digital humanities centers on website, and then they definitely listed number of resources.
Thank you. In fact, University of Toronto has a very good page, I think.
Yeah, I think the data library at U of T, they have they have very good number of resources. You can definitely explore that page as well.
The next question is from Arati Banerjee. She asks, could you please elaborate on word embedding again?
Okay, word embedding is something the relationship between the words. For example, when you say man, the next possible related word could be woman. So when you say, when you select a word, for example, king, the next closely related word could be queen. So that's a word embedding process. So yeah, then I think look for examples, word embedding projects, and then that's where you can understand the use case of word embedding in our research.
The next question is from Prakriti Bhatt. She asks, apart from text analysis, what can be the other points of literary analysis in which text mining can be employed? Like, can it be used in performative studies or psychoanalytic study?
Um, I don't have any knowledge in all those skills you listed now, all those fields. You can use, I think, psychoanalytic field for sure, but I don't know how the research usually scholars perform in that. I don't aware of it. Otherwise, I would definitely can recommend. Um, mm, it's not only for studying the themes or plots. There are a number of ways you can use text mining, but if you can tell me any example question of your research question, maybe I can tell you how you can use text mining.
Prakriti, the moment I saw Prakriti's question, in my head, it immediately felt like, okay, so are we trying to pinpoint something like a Freudian slip using corpus studies or pattern recognition? But even Freudian slips can be very personal or personalized, I suppose. So, Prakriti, if you have a follow-up question to that, please use the form. Otherwise, unfortunately, we are nearing the end of our time, so we would start wrapping up this discussion now. You know, Shanmuga, thank you so much. What is the time there now?
No, actually, I'm home now. I'm currently in India. I'm in Tamil Nadu.
Oh, good. Oh, thank God. Great. I'm
Yeah.
I was very, very worried, scared about. Thank you so much for the session and for being so patient with all our questions, because we are a room full of primarily humanities scholars who are trying to figure our way around. And while the theories or the relevance of digital humanities is beyond a point fairly easy to explain, to discuss, to talk about, the actual practices or the tools that we have and what the kind of new kinds of work or more detailed or more invested kinds of work that are possible are there. We can't ignore them, but it has become a point of fear for a lot of us, I think. And that anxiety was addressed very well in today's session, I feel. So thank you so much. Honestly, I really, really, I personally benefited a lot from attending this session.
And thank you so much to you too as well for this wonderful, interaction and the invitation. I was very much glad when I got your mail and then I spoke to Vasundhara as well. So, and thank you so much to you and thank you so much to Srimai as well for this opportunity to talk to scholars from across India. That's really wonderful. And yeah, I'm looking for any other future interaction as well.
Yes, I have a feeling we have just started our conversation. We have a long way ahead because we are looking at similar questions, or I'm sure others in the room feel that way as well. All of us could relate to the kind of questions or concerns you're raising. And thank you for making it so accessible. Since we are nearly out of time and I can't see any other questions coming in the form, maybe Srimoidi, would you like to take up from here?
Yes, sure. Thank you again to our speaker, and our participants actually, I believe, took their time to post the questions because it gave us a food for thought. And today we really went into the technicalities of what is DH, and it took us a bit of a time to really grasp it and then formulate the questions. So thank you so much for your time.
I'm so
Good to hear
sorry
that you're
to
back home.
interrupt.
Yes,
We,
yes,
in fact,
Dr.
have a
Chan.
follow-up question from Prakriti.
Yes,
Uh,
Okay.
go ahead, Dr. Chan.
yes, yes, sorry. So, one last question before we close the session. Can we analyze patterns of behavior or frequency of the character performing a set of number of actions within a play or a novel and make conclusions regarding the same? Shanmuga.
Okay, I'm going to take some of the keywords from this question.
Yes.
So, action and character, which like immediately I could think of. If you have to trace the characters and extract the words that are appeared throughout the novel along with these characters, and then you can then narrow down to action words and then create a tree map that I showed you one example in the project, and then you can definitely come to a conclusion by providing some interpretation. So, but this question would require number of methods, number of process steps. Maybe you have to start with finding the characters names. If you know the character names already, then you can just use the characters. Even the Ancong tool you can use. Just filter the character names and filter the collocations or concordance, and then extract in a CSV file. And then you can create a tree map or any kind of other visualizations. For example, the raw graph online data visualization tool, you can use that to show to visualize your outcome. Or otherwise I can think of hmm, I think topic modeling would not be useful here, definitely. So I think for now I could think of these couple of steps. you have to perform. In case if you don't know the characters' names, let's say you have a 10 to 15 novels in your hand, so you don't have, you cannot trace the character names by through close reading. So you can use named entity recognition to extract persons' names, characters' names, and then after this method, you can use then collocation or concordance that will find out the words appeared along with these characters, and then you can do the visualization. So first named entity recognition, collocation or concordance, and then visualization. Maybe you can, yeah, just play around like that.
Thank you. I think that is unfortunately the absolute last question that we can take for today's session. If you have other questions or questions you can think of later, please share them in the Google form. We will try our best to address them. The PowerPoint presentation that is being, as you know, these sessions are recorded and will be available to everyone on YouTube. I share the links to the videos, so we can take that. Prakriti, thanks, Shanmuga, incidentally. Yes, Shanmuga.
Okay, so let's bring this to an end. I can't believe that this is actually the fourth lecture of our FDP. We are almost there, only one is left, but I think I'm as excited as I was on the first day because the learning process has been wonderful, really. Thanks to our wonderful speakers. And thank you, Bhupia, again. I think he got interrupted there. And I would also like to you held you down under the weather a bit. I hope you're doing fine. And thank you to our participants. Please keep an eye out for the mails that you will soon be receiving with the link for the session as well as a small questionnaire, again, to help us to process certification because, again, we are dealing with huge numbers here. So, thank you to everyone who has joined us today. And please do join us for the final time next Saturday. We do hope and we do know also that I think we will bring this LTP to an end with another excellent session. So, see you again next Saturday.
Thank you. Thank you so much to everyone.
I hope everyone has a good weekend. We'll see you again next week.
Yeah, see you again. Bye-bye.
Bye, Shanmuga.
Bye.
Take care. Bye, Srimati. Thank you so much for your kind comments in the Thank you. We'll end today here then.
Right. Thanks.